ride it's been. 100 episodes with a total of over 2,000 Teslacam clips. We've looked at the data, and here are the clips you all enjoyed the most. We put them together in a top 50 list of the most viewed videos from this year. Buckle up. Ezekiel was driving his Model 3 on the freeway outside of Huntington, Oregon. He was driving at around 80 miles per hour when he noticed a police car speeding up behind him. Ezekiel moved over to let the officer fly past him. In the distance, he noticed a car coming straight toward them. The officer lined up to take him down. It was a direct hit, and the car who was speeding the wrong direction down the freeway was neutralized. The officer jumped out of his vehicle, broke the window of the other car, and had the guy in cuffs in a matter of seconds. The official story says that around 2 p.m., emergency dispatchers received a report of a wrong-way driver on the freeway near milepost 342. The reporting party described a silver sedan driving westbound in the eastbound lanes. Oregon State Police troopers responded to the area in an attempt to locate the driver. Less than 5 minutes later, the senior trooper spotted the vehicle just before colliding with it. The wrong-way driver sustained minor injuries and was taken to a hospital for treatment and evaluation. He was then booked into the Baker County Jail on charges of second-degree attempted assault, reckless driving, and reckless endangerment. Imagine putting yourself in this kind of danger to stop an individual from hurting others. Wham bam, that trooper is a hero, man. The Chevy pickup truck next to him stopped properly for the light, but the Honda CR-V behind him barely slowed down before rear-ending the pickup. The impact pushed the Chevy into the concrete median barrier and then into another Honda CR-V right in front of it. Ladies and gentlemen, our very first double #Honda bump. It wasn't until Stan reviewed the footage after he got home that he noticed how close the debris from the crash came to hitting his car. He sent the video to the local police department. They thanked him for the video, but he didn't get a follow-up. We hope everyone involved is okay. The massive accident made news headlines, and now we get to show you the Teslacam footage. Unfortunately, there is some dirt on the front camera, but we can see him braking for the Opel in front of him. As he moves to the leftmost lane, the dog appears in the middle of the lane. That was when he felt the impact. From the rear view camera, we can see that the other drivers slowed down significantly, all except for one, which hit the Opel in the middle lane at full speed. The resulting fire was quickly put out, and news reports stated that the fire only caused minor smoke damage to the cabin. We're not sure if that really matters in determining if these cars can be salvaged or if they're totaled. Thankfully, the frightened dog was taken to a shelter by some good Samaritans. People were walking around the parking lot and shopping, but the first sign of trouble was rain starting to pick up. Next, the electricity went out, and seconds later, the wind picked up. The wind got so strong that small objects started flying around in the parking lot. Eventually, bigger and bigger objects were being picked up and carried around the lot. Look at this guy rushing to his car for safety. Luckily, he managed to get inside just as a tornado touched down. The tornado was so strong that it was moving cars in the parking lot, and objects were flying everywhere.
Wham bam! Rock you like a hurricane. Are you ready, man? Teslacam. I hope you were satisfied.
The tornado that tore through Barrie that day left a path of destruction over 3 miles long and up to 300 feet wide. The Canadian Federal Weather Agency rated the tornado EF2, with wind speeds reaching up to 130 miles per hour. The city of Barrie said that 10 people were hospitalized, but miraculously, none of them suffered life-threatening injuries. When Ben sent us the video, he hadn't yet reached out to his insurance provider since there were so many other things in the community that needed to be fixed, but it's next on his to-do list. Debris struck basically all over the car, leaving plenty of scratches and dents. Even the rims were damaged. Ben is confident the insurance claim process will go smoothly. Mike had parked his Model Y on the streets of Chicago one night when Sentry Mode captured this incident. He got a notification in the Tesla app that his alarm had gone off, but he couldn't check on his car until an hour later. By then, the other driver had left, so Mike called the police and they asked him to come into the station since they don't send officers to investigate hit-and-run accidents. He told them he had it all on video, and they asked if the license plate number was visible. Unfortunately, the car didn't have any license plates on it. After hearing that, they didn't even care to see the video or try to identify the guy. They gave him a report number, and his insurance is covering the incident with no questions asked, since the video shows it all. The repair bill is estimated to be $6,000 US, and that's before they check to see if there's any unseen damage. Mike had a friend of a friend in law enforcement who heard the story and pulled the security footage of nearby businesses and confirmed that the vehicle had no license plates. The vehicle couldn't be followed on footage after it turned down a street with no cameras. When traffic unexpectedly slowed down in the left lane, the SUV was following way too closely behind the Tesla and didn't even try to brake before hitting it. Still, the Tesla seemed to handle the impact fairly well. This clip's submitter was driving his Model 3 in Norway when the Land Rover in the opposite lane suddenly started to hydroplane. The submitter wants to thank the other driver for his efforts to not hit him, as he had his wife and 2 kids with him. There happened to be another Model 3 right behind the Land Rover, so hopefully he's watching and will share footage from his angle. A woman coming over the hill didn't notice the light and smashed into Jay's Tesla at about 70 miles per hour. Jay says that autopilot did alert him before the impact, but there was nothing he or autopilot could do to prevent it. The vehicles rolled a short distance after the impact before coming to a complete stop again. Even though none of the Tesla's airbags went off, both Jay and his passenger were alright. Jay jumped out to help the woman out of her car when he noticed she was trapped in her vehicle's airbags. She was okay, and with his help, she managed to get out of her car. The Tesla was leaking an unknown fluid, and the vehicle went into emergency mode, which ended with it shutting down. Tesla called Jay's phone 2 minutes later, but at the time, he was busy talking to the woman and the police. Both cars were completely totaled and had to be hauled away on tow trucks. Even though they both were customers of the same insurance company, there was a battle of almost 2 months before the company paid out. Jay's insurance agent told him that having the video as evidence that he was completely stopped was very helpful for his claim. He had a stealth Model 3 performance, and unfortunately the insurance company didn't know how to value it correctly. The entire car ended up being replaced, but not until Jay fought for them to replace his full paint protection car wrap, which took about 2 months to approve. John was driving his Model 3 in Falls Church, Virginia, just outside of DC, when a Ford driver in front of him slammed on the brakes. John managed to react in time, but the Honda behind him wasn't so skilled. The force of the impact pushed John's Tesla into the Ford, sandwiching him between the two vehicles. Hashtag Honda Bump. Before we continue, take a look at this freeze frame. That's a pretty crappy business slogan. An insurance claim was filed and police were notified. The Honda driver took full responsibility. John got a repair estimate the day after the incident for $3,000, but one day later, the body shop contacted him with a new estimate of $7,000. The next day, he got yet another estimate for $20,000. The fourth day after the accident, they contacted him again to let him know the estimate now totaled $24,000. At that point, the vehicle was considered a total loss. We speculate that the chassis must have been bent, because from the outside, the damage doesn't look that bad. What's your theory? Share it in the comments. Hunter had parked his Model 3 on the very same street as in the last incident, in front of his colleague's Hyundai. That's when a distracted driver drifted for over 6 seconds before slamming into the Hyundai without even trying to slow down. This pushed the Hyundai into the Tesla. Some firefighters were right behind the offender and witnessed the whole thing. Only about a month earlier, Hunter had promised the fire department that he would show them the Tesla battery cutoff procedure, since he was one of the first in his town to own a Tesla. This wasn't exactly the situation he had in mind. Fortunately, the Tesla was repairable at a cost of 20,000 Australian dollars, since the offending driver had comprehensive insurance. It had to be shipped 1,500 kilometers to a repair center in Adelaide, South Australia, and it's expected to take 8 to 12 weeks to repair. Unfortunately, the Hyundai was totaled, as its damages were estimated at over 17,000 Australian dollars, more than the value of the vehicle. The offending driver claimed that the accident was caused by a mechanical failure. However, after the police reviewed the Tesla footage and surrounding street cam footage, it was determined that the accident was caused by the driver being distracted by her phone. In this enhanced still image taken from the rear view camera, we can actually see her holding the phone in her hand above the steering wheel. Hunter adds that he wants to see the availability of parts and service from Tesla improve as Elon has promised. The main reason his repairs will take so long is because of how long the replacement parts will take to arrive from Tesla. He'd also like to see more charging infrastructure in Australia, as the number of Teslas in Australia is now 10 times what it was when he purchased his Model 3 only a year ago. Aaron was on his way to work one morning in downtown San Diego, California, when he overtook a Chevy Silverado that was indicating for a right turn. The street the pickup driver was planning to turn down was actually a one-way street though, so he couldn't turn. Instead, he continued forward and got behind Aaron to turn at the next street. At a red light, the pickup driver rolled up alongside Aaron. Initially, he thought that maybe he was an enthusiastic Tesla fan, so he rolled down his window in case the stranger wanted to say something. It turned out that the pickup driver felt that he'd been cut off by Aaron, and he was upset that Aaron had slowed down once he had gotten in front of him. Confused by the accusations, and motivated by the strong odor emanating from the man through the open window, Aaron decided to remove himself from the situation. The pickup driver then attempted to aggressively cut him off on the following corner, almost hitting a pedestrian while doing so. After reviewing the footage, Aaron realized that the man may have been under the influence of alcohol, as a small liquor bottle fell out of his car when he opened his door. This clip's submitter was driving his Model 3 in Auburn, Washington. Autopilot was engaged when traffic slowed to a stop. A motorcyclist behind him had plenty of time to slow down, but it looks like he panicked instead. He locked up his rear brake, lost control, spun 180 degrees, and crashed on a narrow shoulder. The submitter watched it all in the rearview mirror and took over from autopilot, moving his Tesla forward and to the right as the motorcycle slid toward him. The driver behind him stopped to make sure the motorcyclist was okay. In this section of the highway, the submitter says there's not much of a shoulder to pull onto since Jersey barriers are very close to the road. Edward was driving his Model 3 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Watch what happened right in front of him when he was stopped at a red light. He jumped out to check on the driver who had rolled into him. She was injured and in shock, and there was also an injured dog in the cab. She ended up being taken away in an ambulance. Fortunately, the driver of the white Toyota was fine. After saving the Teslacam footage, Edward shared it with the police and all parties involved in the accident. The police were super impressed and thankful for it. The driver of the car that hit him called several months later to ask for a new copy of the footage. At that time, the investigation into who was at fault hadn't been settled yet. She still believes she was in the right and is suffering physically from the accident and planning to sue the Toyota driver. Her insurance only gave her a few $100s to replace her older Subaru. Edward isn't sure whose insurance paid for his repairs, but they cost $2,500 US, and it took a week for him to get his Tesla back. Dan had parked his Tesla at the very far end of a parking lot. A stranger in a Mazda reversed over 300 feet while aimed directly at his Tesla before driving off. He was able to get their license plate number from the video and gave it to the police. They looked up the registered address and went straight to the owner's house. Dan got their insurance information, and now they'll end up paying for the repairs. Ryan was driving his Model 3 to work in Kansas City, Missouri. A freezing rainstorm had hit the Kansas City metro area just before sunrise. Ryan could tell that the car behind him was traveling too quickly to stop. In an attempt to avoid hitting Ryan's Tesla, the other car tried to swerve onto the shoulder. Unfortunately, he crashed into the barrier instead. Ryan changed lanes in an attempt to give the Chrysler more room, but the Tesla continued to slide laterally on the ice as it fought to get traction. Another Chrysler behind him was also going too fast, and as the Tesla slid across two lanes, they had to swerve to avoid hitting Ryan. That's when he was hit by a flying guardrail, losing control. He was finally able to get some traction and keep from sliding into the guardrail, but the guy behind him slid right on by. The other car bumped into the guardrail before spinning out in front of Ryan. It was quite the little dance show before things got serious again when he started sliding toward Ryan. Ryan talked to the driver of the car that almost slid into him. They were both pretty shaken up. It was too dangerous for Ryan to go back and check on the other drivers, so he never heard what happened to the first car. However, he does know that many other cars crashed into the guardrail that had flown into the road. He says it was a crazy accident. Wesley was driving his Model 3 in Brisbane, Australia. In the United States, some pickup owners like to lift their trucks, but since everything is upside down in Australia, pickup owners there like to lower their trucks and call them utes, short for a utility vehicle. Wesley was pulling up to a red light when he got behind two souped-up utes. The one in front of him was so eager for the green light, he busted a burnout. We're not sure if he was trying to impress or intimidate the driver of the Tesla. Then he drove off even though the light was still red. When the light turned green, his buddy pulled a massive power slide in front of Wesley, who was just enjoying the show. Tony's wife was in Target getting groceries in Auburn Hills, Michigan, when this man decided to key their Model X for no apparent reason. Tony posted this video in a local Facebook group, and the man was identified within 2 hours. Tony filed a police report including the vandal's name and the information of several people willing to identify him for the police. Even the criminal's co-workers were willing to identify him. The man eventually turned himself in, and Tony is pressing charges for malicious destruction of property over $1,000 US, which is a felony in Michigan. Craig was waiting at a red light when vehicles started moving out of the way for a fire truck responding to an emergency. Guess what happened next? Of course, a Honda driver decided to engage Honda bump mode, striking a Toyota who was trying to get out of the way. Craig was almost involved as well, as the car behind him came close to striking him had he not moved forward to give him some room. This video was recorded in 2019 before the rear Teslacam was enabled with the software update, so unfortunately we don't have that angle. He pulled over and loaded the videos on his iPhone. After the police spoke to the involved parties, they told Craig that they wished they had Teslacam footage of all accidents. Craig never did find out who was ruled to be at fault. What do you think? Was it the Honda driver's fault for hitting the Toyota who was moving over for the fire truck? Or the Toyota driver who moved over the solid line without checking that it was clear? Scott was driving his Tesla Model 3 Performance in Scottsdale, Arizona. As he approached a red light, he noticed he was pulling it to pole position next to a McLaren 570S. He was hoping that the driver of the McLaren would engage in a drag race, so he looked over at them as they both pulled up to the red light. He almost couldn't believe who was behind the wheel of the McLaren. Scott had his window down and locked eyes with NFL wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald. He got his attention to see if he was interested in a little friendly race, and he agreed. When the light turned green, they both hit the juice pedal. Scott admits that, in the end, he had to let Fitz come back for the win since he's a huge fan. Scott added that Larry has been spotted around town driving a Tesla, and he wonders why he took his McLaren out for a spin instead. Perhaps he'll rethink that next time. They both rolled down their windows at the light, and Scott smiled and gave him finger guns pointing forward. The Maserati driver responded, "It's on." This time, Scott wasn't going to give away the victory. After the other driver was crushed off the line, he asked Scott at the next opportunity to roll his window down. The guy was laughing, completely blown away at how fast the Model 3 Performance was. Then he said, "Yeah, but can your car do this?" He proceeded to rev his engine a lot, and they both had a good laugh. Ross was driving his Model 3 home from work in Canberra, Australia, when a biker merged in behind him and got really close to him. The BMW behind the biker was driving even closer to the back wheel of the motorcycle. That's when Ross started slowing down for traffic up ahead. The biker tried to swerve to the left lane to avoid a collision, but it seems like he locked his rear brake up, resulting in a high side. He missed the back of the Tesla by inches. Ross stopped and rendered aid, as did the drivers both in front and behind. The biker was okay, although he had some injuries to his hands since he wasn't wearing any gloves. Ross adds that it was mostly the biker's pride that was injured. Al was driving in Lawrenceville, Georgia, when he slowed down for traffic that was stopping at a red light up ahead. The driver of the Ford Focus behind him didn't see the traffic slowing down. The other driver tried to change lanes, but collided with Al's right rear bumper and tire. The driver barely managed to keep his Ford Focus upright. In the Model X, Al says he only felt a small bump. Unfortunately, what he thought was merely superficial damage ended up requiring the replacement of the entire rear subframe, motor, axles, rear air handler, and, of course, the rear bumper cover. The ricochet from the impact also cracked the side chassis frame. Collectively, the damage estimate was more than $50,000 US, and Al's insurance company decided the vehicle was totaled. This Model 3 owner was stopped at a red light in Kennesaw, Georgia when a Dodge Charger attempted to make a U-turn. In the process, he hit a white Toyota. Instead of hitting the brakes to stop, the driver of the Dodge accidentally pressed the gas pedal and continued driving, striking the Tesla on the driver's side. Police were contacted, and the Teslacam footage was used to prove that the driver of the Dodge Charger was at fault. Unfortunately, Tesla doesn't have any body shops in this part of the United States authorized to repair this level of damage, even though there is a Tesla repair center right up the street from where the submitter lives. They had to go through a third-party body repair shop. The submitter says they're a little concerned about the body shop's ability to diagnose whether or not the battery is damaged. They had only owned the Model 3 for a month when this happened. Their previous car was 20 years old and they'd never been in a wreck before. This clip comes to us from Tacoma, Washington, where the submitter had been driving his Model 3 behind a green Dodge Durango. Suddenly, the Durango crossed the double yellow lines, slamming into a commercial truck. The submitter was the first person on scene and says it was a horrible accident. Both front doors were pinned shut because the impact caused the rear doors to jam the front doors and hold them shut. The submitter tried everything he could to get the doors open, but ultimately the responding firefighters had to use the jaws of life to open the doors so the occupants could get out. There were 2 people in the Durango, and both were taken away in an ambulance. The Pierce County Sheriff's Department posted this picture on Twitter, asking drivers to find alternative routes as they waited for a tow truck big enough to remove the damaged truck. While making this video, we discovered another recent tweet from the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, another accident at the same place on the same road. There sure seem to be a lot of accidents on this road, and the replies to this tweet suggest that people are often speeding up the hill. Please be safe out there. In this video, we see him and his colleague driving a Model Y with full self-driving engaged. Watch what happened just as they left the express lane to head to work. A Toyota pickup truck merged into their lane without checking for traffic, causing autopilot to swerve the Tesla to avoid being hit. Justin had a separate dashcam recording both in front of and inside the Tesla. Let's listen to what that sounded like and see how they reacted when this happened.
Oh, shit. Got it? Yeah, I got it. Woo!
He managed to save the spin thanks to the Tesla's low center of gravity and the factory tires that are rated for such a heavy car. Karanda had just taken delivery of her new 2021 Model 3 on December 31st of 2020. On January 27th of 2021, it was a rainy day when she was driving down San Jose Boulevard in the Mandarin neighborhood of Jacksonville, Florida. She'd come to a complete stop in the left turn lane at a red light when, BAM! A Nissan ran into the back of her Model 3. Karanda thinks they were doing something else besides driving because it didn't seem like they even tried to stop. Immediately, she got out in the pouring rain to check on the other driver and to inspect the damage. The other driver backed up and signaled that he was okay, so Karanda went back to her car. That's when the Nissan driver sped off. Karanda contacted the police and gave them the video footage. Due to the rain, it was hard to make out the full license plate numbers, so the police said they couldn't do anything about it. The Tesla's bumper and trunk had to be fully replaced. She filed a claim with her insurance company and is waiting to hear the final cost. She hopes that maybe someone will recognize the car and can help her out. If you do have any helpful information, shoot us an email and we'll pass it along to her. This lady thought she had put her car in park, but she must have left it in neutral instead. When the car in front of her left, her car started rolling towards Steve's parked Model Y. Let's cue up the dramatic music and tell the Honda to release the car. Steve filed an insurance claim and adds that he's hoping it doesn't take 2 months to get it repaired. Justin and his roommate were driving in uptown Dallas, Texas, when a truck ran a red light, T-boning another Model 3 right next to them. They stopped to check on everyone. Both the man in the truck and the couple in the Tesla were shaken up, but nobody was seriously injured. While at work, Jesse got a notification on his phone that the alarm on his Model 3 had been activated. He rushed out of the meeting he was attending, but when he finally got to the garage, he found his car all smashed up, along with 2 witnesses who had seen the whole thing. Let's take a look at the Sentry mode footage. A guy in a Mustang was stunt driving in the parking lot when he lost control, hitting the rear bumper of the Tesla. That's when the first witness passed by the scene with a dashcam running, capturing a view of the Need for Speed guy as he got out to check the damage to his Mustang. Sentry mode also caught this at an even better angle. Both his license plate and face were visible from the left repeater camera. After checking the damage to his own car, he got back in and took off. That's when the second witness caught him leaving the scene and recorded this video using his phone. A hit and run report was filed, and due to the Sentry mode footage of his face and license plates, he was found by the police and charged for both the accident and for fleeing the scene. This clip submitter was driving his Model 3 with autopilot engaged in Bradford, Ontario, Canada. As he approached a red light, autopilot slowed the Tesla down to stop behind a Chevrolet. That's when he suddenly felt an impact and his car flew into the Chevy in front of him. The driver of a pickup truck behind him didn't slow down, hitting the Tesla from behind at full speed. Luckily, the submitter and his family were unhurt, and so were the occupants of the other vehicles involved. The driver of the pickup truck was charged with careless driving. The total damage to the Tesla led the insurance company to declare it a total loss, and they provided him with the replacement value for a new Tesla Model 3. Yvonne and his friend were on their way to the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, California to check out the Tesla Roadster on display there. That's when a silver Lexus merged in front of them. Yvonne had autopilot set to 70 miles per hour. When the Lexus merged, the driver clearly accelerated, moving faster than the Tesla's constant speed. Traffic slowed down up ahead, but the Lexus didn't. It doesn't look like the driver even hit the brakes until just before he slammed into a black Kia. Autopilot didn't react or give any warnings, so Yvonne took over and applied the brakes. He doesn't think Autopilot had a chance to react, as the accident was too far in the distance. Everyone involved was shaken up, but miraculously, nobody was hurt. The Freeway Service Patrol arrived minutes later. Yvonne and his friend believed that the Lexus driver was distracted, but he wouldn't admit to it. Instead, he kept repeating that he was using cruise control, which might be true, but he clearly didn't brake. Dan was sitting at a red light in Jacksonville, Florida. He'd only had his Model 3 for 5 months at this point, so he was still flooring the juice pedal at green lights, enjoying the smooth acceleration that an EV can provide. As Dan was preparing to blast off from pole position, a woman in a Buick Enclave pulled out from the line of cars behind him and took the spot next to him. When the light turned green, he took off. As soon as he hit the straightaway, he slammed the accelerator and enjoyed that wonderful EV torque. When he approached the next red light, the Buick merged in behind him. What he didn't know was that the woman had become offended and was now furious. Once they had come to a complete stop, she got out of her car and walked up to Dan. He didn't even notice her until she was right at his door, spitting on the driver's side window. Dan's not sure what this Karen's issue was. After reviewing the clip several times, he can only assume that she must have planned to cut in front of him after the light, but she never used her turn signal or indicated in any way that this was the case. His other theory is that she might just be a Tesla hater who tries to spit on at least one Tesla per day. By the way, this took place in May of 2020, right in the middle of the strict lockdowns and mask mandates. Dan hates to think that maybe she was trying to get him sick. Jawad is a frequent Wham Bam submitter, but he never thought he would be sending us a video of a large accident. He lives in Shanghai, and he privately imported a Model 3 before Tesla opened its Chinese factory and sales locations. Here we see his wife driving their Model 3 to work. When she entered a tunnel, she had to slow down because traffic was getting heavier. Eventually, the traffic came to a full stop. Unfortunately, the taxi driver behind her didn't slow down at all and rear-ended the Tesla without even applying the brakes. The force of the impact pushed the Tesla into another stopped taxi in front of it. Both taxis were carrying passengers, but thankfully everyone involved was okay. The impact of the crash was so hard that the taxi got stuck in the bodywork of the Tesla. The police and the tow truck driver asked Jawad's wife to drive the car forward in an attempt to get them unstuck. But the taxi remained stuck even after several attempts to get it out. Since they were in a heavily trafficked tunnel, the police instructed her to drive the Tesla, with the taxi dragging behind it, out of the tunnel. She managed to pull the taxi out of the tunnel, parking on the first street just outside of it. Of course, this attracted quite the crowd. Jawad's wife said that the passers-by kept calling the Tesla a transformer because it didn't appear to have much damage. The taxi driver who rear-ended the Tesla told everyone that he had changed lanes and didn't have enough time to stop. Jawad's wife and this Teslacam video prove that's not what happened. The next day, after reviewing the Teslacam footage, the police called the taxi driver down to the police station. That's when he changed his story, stating that when he entered the tunnel, it was so dark he couldn't see clearly. When they pulled the taxi with the tow truck to separate it from the Tesla, this broke the rear bumper. It was visible that the Tesla's rear shock-absorbing beam only had minor damage. The taxi driver's insurance coverage will pay for the repairs to the Tesla. His own taxi was totaled, and the taxi in front of the Tesla only had some minor damage to its rear bumper cover. At first, they promised Jawad they'd get the Tesla fixed within 2 weeks. But because his Model 3 was imported, they've since told him that they can't use any repair parts from the Shanghai factory. His parts have to be shipped from the US factory. The cost estimate for the repairs is around $10,000 US. JJ was backing his Model 3 out of his driveway one regular morning in Austin, Texas. As he made his way down the street, he slowed down to stop at a stop sign just like he does every morning. This time, he hadn't even reached the stop sign before a Toyota came flying around the corner. He tried to swerve out of the way, but the Toyota hit JJ's Tesla head-on. When he got out of his Tesla, JJ realized his right arm wasn't okay. After he called 911 to report the accident, the fire department, the police department, and an ambulance all responded to the scene. The paramedics checked JJ's arm and concluded that it was broken. Thankfully, the Toyota's driver and passengers were unharmed. The firefighters used absorbent material to clean up the fluids that were leaking from the Toyota. Since the Tesla doesn't have any gasoline, engine oil, or transmission fluid, there wasn't anything leaking from it for them to clean up. Next, the police officers jumped into action. The Teslacam footage made it easy for them to determine what had happened, and they gave the other driver 2 citations, one for reckless driving and the other for driving uninsured. If the cost to repair the damage is worth 75% or more of what the car was worth, it'll be considered totaled. Since the other driver was uninsured, it's now up to JJ's insurance to pay for the repairs or replace the car with a new Tesla. Here's a picture of JJ's arm in a cast. Wham Bam, get well soon, man. We're sending you a Wham Bam hoodie to lift your spirits while you wait for both your arm and your Tesla to get fixed. Corbinian was driving his Model 3 in Bavaria, Germany, when another Model 3 in front of him tried to overtake but didn't see an oncoming car. The Tesla appeared to launch him back into his lane, saving the big slide. The driver then continued with the overtake he had already started. Nadia was driving her Model 3 on the Newark Turnpike in New Jersey. All of a sudden, the Tesla gave her an accident warning chime and automatically applied the brakes. At first, she couldn't understand why. That's when the Hyundai in front of her started to reverse. In response, she laid on the horn until the car stopped. That's when she saw this Chrysler. The passenger of the Chrysler was halfway out of the car when it started rolling backward. He tried to close the door, but it hit the Hyundai and missed the Model 3 by inches. The passenger in the back seat dove out of the moving car to save himself since the door was stuck open. He would have been crushed if he hadn't. It turned out this whole thing was caused by a 3-vehicle accident that occurred in the traffic piling up ahead. Of course, it became a 4-car accident after the Chrysler rolled into the Hyundai. This clip's submitter was driving her Model 3 behind a small truck on the national highway in Taiwan when all of a sudden this happened. A flying piece of plywood cut a big hole in the front window on the passenger side of the Tesla, but the driver was luckily alone in the car at the time and she escaped without any injuries. She's glad the Tesla's window was strong enough to avoid shattering, but the cabin was still sprayed with dust and small shards of glass. She called the police, who quickly arrived at the scene, and by reviewing the Teslacam footage, they were able to identify the truck. When they confronted the driver, they learned it was a rental truck, and they suspect that the driver hadn't even tried to secure the cargo. After being questioned by the cops, the driver of the truck was fined for endangering the public. The submitter says it was a shocking experience that started a long process involving lawyers and insurance companies trying to sort out the problem of repairing the damage. She's glad she's okay, and she's grateful for all the people who stopped to help. Nate was driving his Model 3 in Menlo Park, California when he passed a big rig that was going 60 miles per hour with a flat front right tire. Nate drove past the truck as he took his exit, keeping a close eye on the flat tire in his rearview mirror. When he was well past the truck, the tire shot off and took the same exit that Nate did. The truck tried to keep on trucking, but the driver ended up pulling safely over onto the shoulder. The tire rolled past Nate, bouncing into a fence before it also came to a safe stop. Barry was driving his Model 3 in Savannah, Georgia. He just exited I-95 and was slowing down for the traffic light up ahead. After stopping behind a Toyota RAV4, Barry suddenly felt a large impact. When he looked to his right, he saw the tires of a Honda crawling up the side of his Tesla. If we take a look at the right repeater camera, we can see the same bizarre sight that Barry saw. No airbags were deployed in the Tesla, but the car did go into accident mode. Barry got out and talked with the driver of the Honda. She was pretty rattled, but everyone involved was okay. They proceeded to inspect his car, and he mentioned to her that this was going to be a very expensive repair bill. He sent the Teslacam videos to the police and his insurance company. The latter was quick to determine that the Tesla was a total loss. The cost to repair the damages was greater than the price of a new Model 3, so they cut Barry a check for $52,000 US. Okay guys, here it comes, hashtag Honda Bump. We actually get a lot of comments that the hashtag Honda Bump joke is getting old, but it's not our fault that we get so many videos of Honda drivers causing accidents. We even ran a poll asking what you would be most afraid of to see in your rearview mirror. Even though the options included some truly scary cars, Honda won the poll in a landslide with 79% of over 19,000 votes. Vince was driving his Model 3 in Kirkwood, Missouri. Rain was pouring down and water was building up on the road. Watch what happened when he came to a slight turn in the freeway. The Mercedes-Benz C-Class that was passing him on the right hydroplaned, losing traction and spinning out right in front of him. Vince hit the brakes just in time. The Mercedes crashed into the barrier in front of Vince and parts went flying everywhere. If we play back the video in slow motion, we can see that, surprisingly, the Mercedes airbags didn't deploy. Vince stopped to check on the driver of the Mercedes, who was fortunate to be unharmed. Vince's wife stayed in their Model 3 and called 911 while he made his way up the road to warn other drivers, since visibility was poor and the road conditions were unsafe. Micah was driving his Tesla down I-664 when someone in front of him hit their brakes super hard. Autopilot was engaged and automatically applied the brakes. Micah took over, swerving the car to the right and onto the shoulder. As he was waiting to merge back onto the highway, all of a sudden he heard a huge bang and witnessed this 3-car accident. Micah saved the footage and gave it to the Virginia State Police, and the officer was impressed with the footage and informed him that 3 people had been taken to the hospital, but they were all okay. Norm was driving his Model 3 in Sunrise, Florida when he stopped at a red light. Watch what happened when the light turned green. The driver of a Lincoln thought he had a green light and turned just as a Lexus came speeding through. The Lincoln clipped the back of the Lexus, sending it rolling onto its roof. Luckily, everyone involved in the crash was okay. Orlando was sitting at a red light in Boston, Massachusetts when a BMW M3 came flying through the intersection sideways. Orlando says it was super loud, and we've got to say that he held that drift for a long time. He earned a lot of style points with that move. Dominic was enjoying the Canada Day fireworks in his neighborhood. They started out pleasant enough, and then it seems like all hell broke loose. When some of the fireworks went rogue and started shooting sideways, people started running, and it seemed like the whole neighborhood was turned into a battlefield. We're not sure who was in charge of this particular rocket launch, but I think we can definitely say they don't work for SpaceX. When the dust settled, everyone was safe and in a good mood, with laughs flying all around. Maybe next year they should focus more on where the fireworks are flying. Liu was driving his Model Y in Seattle, Washington. Watch what happened when he came to a stop at a red light. A Mazda CX-5 took a right turn into the middle lane and hit the front tire of a Toyota RAV4. The Toyota was inches away from hitting Liu's Tesla. Liu got out and checked on the drivers. They were both okay, and Liu sent them the Teslacam footage for their insurance claims. Ben was driving his Model Y in Lawrenceville, Georgia. He was sitting at a red light, and when the light turned green, Autopilot followed the other traffic. But once he got to the middle of the intersection, Autopilot slammed on the brakes just as a Volvo came flying through the intersection, T-boning a pickup truck to Ben's left. Ben is confident that if Autopilot hadn't stopped the car, he would have ended up hitting the Volvo. Ben stopped to make sure everyone was okay before calling the police. He made the Teslacam video available to all parties involved. John and Michelle were driving with Autopilot engaged with the speed set to 80 miles per hour on I-80 outside Paxton, Nebraska when they were passed by an SUV in the left lane. Michelle noticed the driver was looking over her right shoulder into her back seat when she veered a bit off the road to the left. When she tried to correct, she lost control and rolled across the median and into oncoming lanes. John and Michelle stopped and ran over to make sure the woman was okay. She had already gotten out of her car and was alert and aware as her dog ran around. They called 911 and waited until emergency services arrived and took over the situation. They informed the police that they had Teslacam footage of the crash, but the officers weren't interested. John and Michelle hoped the woman and her dog both had a speedy recovery. John was driving his Model 3 on his way home in Houston, Texas when he heard a roaring engine noise up ahead. Watch what happened next. The Corvette in the opposite lane slid and hit a tree with such impact that the tree fell over. The force of the hit even pulled the roots out of the ground. John pulled over to make sure everyone was okay. Miraculously, the driver of the Corvette walked away from the crash. John couldn't confirm it, but to him it looked like the Corvette driver was racing the Dodge from the stoplight. Unfortunately, his windshield was hit by debris from the Corvette, so he approached the driver to ask him for his insurance information, but the Corvette driver offered to pay for the damage out of his own pocket instead. At first, John thought that was a little sketchy, but after visiting a Tesla service center and getting a quote for the repairs, he contacted the Corvette driver and he promptly paid the bill. John took this cell phone video of the Corvette after the wreck. That's quite the impact. Adrian and his friends left Paris for a road trip to Germany in his 1-month-old Model 3. It was a long drive, so they took turns behind the wheel. It was Adrian's friend's turn to drive the last leg before reaching the border of Germany. His friend who'd only gotten his driver's license a week earlier. As his friend was about to merge back onto the freeway after they'd switched drivers, he merged too quickly onto the freeway and crossed a solid white line. A Renault had no chance to avoid the Tesla and hit them at full speed. Luckily, everyone involved in the accident was unhurt. Adrian says the accident caused a 3-mile-long traffic jam. The police came to investigate, and Adrian's friend accepted 100% fault for causing the accident. The Renault was totaled in the crash, and the Tesla is currently in the repair shop. Adrian says he's not sure how much the repairs will cost yet, but he's sure they'll be expensive. We hope they're still friends. Maybe Adrian should show him how to activate autopilot next time. Andy was driving his Model X with autopilot engaged on a highway in North Carolina when he was passed by a Volkswagen Golf. Behind it was a souped-up Scion TC. The Scion somehow lost control, resulting in what happened next. This was an accident autopilot couldn't avoid, but it acted in a way that made Andy thank autopilot for potentially saving both his life and the life of the Scion driver. Let's see why. When the Scion came out in front of the Tesla, autopilot engaged the automatic emergency braking just enough so that the Tesla wouldn't T-bone the Scion at highway speed. Instead, the Scion flew past him into the guardrail and bounced back, into the back of the Model X. This resulted in a pit maneuver, pushing the Tesla into the guardrail as well. At least it stayed upright. Tesla claimed that they couldn't even get the Model X to roll over during their internal crash testing. This clip goes to show that these cars are basically anchored to the ground. When the dust had settled, both Andy and the other driver walked away from the wreck. First responders were on scene within minutes. From these pictures, we can see that there isn't much left of either car. The Tesla lost both its bumper covers and sustained massive damage to its frame and bodywork. Check out this awesome picture where we can see the North Carolina State Troopers sitting in the Model X and reviewing the Teslacam footage right on the Tesla's screen. We're betting that video was pretty handy for the accident investigation.
Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Cybertruck? My friends all drive diesel, I must make a man.